mother is a strong
That's
woman.
right. That's right.
And I have seen and have felt, and my mother is dark skinned. I have seen and felt her struggles as being a Black woman.
Right.
And so to me, of course my dad is white,
right,
but I am an extension of my mother.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, I am mixed race, and I know that I know I am mixed, and I know some people, they get so stuck, in my opinion, on, okay, well, you are, your dad's white and your mom's Black, and you're of mixed race, but it's how I identify myself. And I identify myself as a Black woman. That is how I've been viewed, how I've been seen. And I remember studying in school the single drop of Black blood.
Right.
You Black.
You Black. Right. That's how we were raised.
That's how we were raised.
That's how we were raised.
And so that's how we were raised.
That's how we were raised.
And so
that's how we were raised.
That's how we were raised.
That's how we were raised.
That's how we were raised. You Black.
You Black. Right. That's how we were raised.
That's how we were raised.
Logical. White people don't have a race, we do. That's the logic. And so you can't be both sides of that. You either Black or you're not. And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean you deny your white family. You can have white family, love white family, engage, embrace white family. But again, our world is not organized around those logics. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. I would agree, and to your point, Van, what you were saying, I would say that our conversation is more so centered around biracial people who do not want to identify as Black, right? Who completely shy away from their Blackness. Not biracial people who say, I am Black and I'm white, and embrace both of those things. Because I have
But you're not white. I guess that's a good impression. You're Black and you have white family. You're Black and you have a white mom. You're Black and you have a white mom.
So you really don't believe as a biracial person you can say, I'm both.
Nah, you can't say you both.
Imagine saying you're gay and you're straight because you have sex with both people. Right? You'd be like, no. Right? Like, see, at some point, one is a negation of the other.
Well, you would say you were bi.
That's a different thing.
Right, which is not straight. I.e., and straight becomes the norm, right? So let's follow this logically out. Similarly, a biracial person is not the norm, right? In a white supremacist society, that is what? White. So you can't be biracial and white anymore. You can be bisexual and straight. Because in both cases, you are doing something that by definition, compromises the other, because they're both framed around purity. Now, again, these are problematic ideas.
Man, Rach, fight back. This nigga bodying you right now.
It's not.
I'm not trying to fight back with him.
Don't let this nigga down here pipe you up to think we battle. We just talking.
Don't worry, I'm not.
Yeah, right.
I'm not. But I do. I mean, again, I'm not biracial. I don't understand necessarily what that is to go through. I don't know what it is to navigate through life, to have, a white mother, but then you look in the mirror and you see yourself as Black. I have no idea what that is. But I guess I do understand the argument of, I'm Black. I also, I'm white as well, but I identify as Black. Like, I guess I don't have an issue with people recognizing.
Can I ask you some question? Seriously, why is this so hilarious to me? It's just, it's hilarious. The notion that Sage still would look in the mirror and be like, I'm white. Like, I
don't
am
think
toxic.
She does.
No, I know, but no, I'm just being for real. Like, I'm toxic. Mark is.
Okay, damn, I had to record that and it was there. So anyways, I was going to respond to some of this Higher Learnings podcast with Van Lathan, Marc Lamont, Moise Hill, and Lindsay Gracie, who was just on the view cooning a little bit for the Democrats not that long ago. But they're having a conversation in context of Sage Still, who is a biracial woman who blames the reason why she get picked on because of that, even though she be tap dancing a little bit, she does a bit. Now, I didn't have an issue with her first statement about Barack Obama being not identified as being biracial, but she took it too far with the whole "you don't know your daddy" part. That was some coonish things to say, even though it's true. But yeah, the biracials were in their feelings and they did feel some type of way. If you go back to 2008, they wanted him to embrace all of who he was. They thought he was a representation of who they were, not, because it's like that's not your identity. You grew up in Hawaii and Kansas, so you going that route just didn't make much sense. But some people say that he needed to do that for the winning election or whatever. Um, but when he was asked on The View by Barbara Walters in context of something he just said on the show, he said, I'm a mongrel, I'm a mix, I'm all over the place. That's why I'm not identifying as what I really am. But so you picked black, but you called yourself a mongrel, saying you were mixed with everything. That didn't make any sense. But yeah, the biracials felt some type of way about that, and I get that part of Sage stuff. She just took it too far with the whole "you don't know your daddy" part, right? Whatever. But I just want to respond to some of what they said on the show. Obviously, Marc Lamont Moise Hill is one drop ruling us to death and trying to act like we can't see what we see. So let's respond to some of the stuff they were saying on the show.
The frustration I have, man, and look, it ain't got nothing to do about. Look, shout out to anybody out there who's biracial. That's your business. It ain't got nothing to do with you, really. You can't. No one controls how they get here. But the fake angst from people like Sage Steele about how they are being dragged and criticized and bullied because of their curls is like so ridiculous, and it allows us to ignore the actual issues that people might have. She went on Megyn Kelly's show and talked about, finally having the space to be courageous and talk about how she's been called a sellout her whole life for being biracial. And I was minding my own business. I might have retweeted it or something because I thought it was funny, that and her talking about getting trashed by Barbara Walters backstage on The View. But I'm like, she's 85. Like, this shouldn't happen no matter what, right? I can't even be outraged. But she then tagged me and I think Professor Roxanne Gay, saying that we don't know her experience. How dare we doubt her? And so I spent the last day or two on the internet, and my mentions are still in shambles. There's a whole lot of biracial sympathizers out there. And again, I'm not counting biracial people. I'm counting the people who are making this about being biracial.
Mark, wait a minute.
It's just the way you phrase it. It's just, you're just effortlessly funny. I know you're not doing that, but you are.
Wait. We gotta name that. Well, first of all, we want to say something right now. This has to do with Sage Steele. This is not a black biracial thing
At all.
At all. We understand that there's a thing, but the way Sage weaponized it,
yes,
was inappropriate. And the statement biracial sympathizer, that's hilarious. So Sage Steele, so you went through with Sage Steele, and Sage Steele essentially used the fact that she's biracial. She weaponized that to say that that's the reason why people might have an issue with you, and you took issue with that.
Yeah, and why people might call you a sellout, because it makes sense to people who don't think, right? If you were to read the statement she's made, her history of, talking about black people, black this, black that, her refusal to identify as black. She's saying, I don't identify as black, right? I'm biracial. And she said, I don't know why Obama would identify as black. His black dad would nowhere be around.
So again, her choosing to be biracial, why does that make you niggercrats feel some type of way? Why is it that a person identifying by who they are makes y'all feel some type of way? Again, her first part about saying, I'm mixed, I embrace all of who I am, that's fine. What's wrong with that? Why do mostly dark-skinned niggas feel a way about that when it comes to mixed race people? These, again, just like Umar, just like Boyce Watkins, Marc Lamont, all these educated, conscious niggas, they letting all the biracials into Wakanda. But again, her saying the stuff about his dad, even though it was true, that should have nothing to do with him identifying as black. However, that was going too far. I guess not politically correct to say or whatever. But her choosing to not, that should not be a mark against her or an attack against her, because she's embracing all of it. And it is what it is. If Barack Obama would have did that, yeah, possibly he would have got a little bit less black support. Whatever. Niggas ain't leaving the Democrat plantation, so it is what it is. They would, as long as he had the black wife and the 75% black kids, he was good. That was his ticket in. That was his pass. So him embracing, I think overall it would have been a bigger picture and better for his presidency if he did do that. I don't know.
Playing on all the tropes. That's why people call you a sellout. It's life choices. Our history is filled with biracial hero. Black people don't make distinctions. Like I don't walk around thinking, oh, Obama's the first biracial president. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, even Drake, you know, I identify as black. He does shit I find irritating at times, but I don't attribute it to like his white. He's just a black dude. You know what I'm saying? Who does light skinned things, right? But not by.
No, Drake is biracial. Yes, he is half little hat people. He is part of that mafia. You can't remove his success from who he is from him being mixed race. You can't do that. His connections, people in his family, who they were, the fact that he has this fake gangster mob ties with Jay Prince protection from the hood element to having them people in that court and who run the music industry allegedly having them having your back and promoting you and pushing you and making you a bigger artist than who you are. You can't remove that. Artists that are black in his same situation don't have the same team, same pull, same run in hip hop. You don't have that run in hip hop that he has without that little hat that's in his bloodline. That's part of who he is. You can't remove that. And yes, some black people did say, because he's going to bring up Barack Obama, or he did already, and it's like weird how people think people are dumb, right? Like, you can't be oblivious to the reality of what it looks like when the first first president that's black is biracial. When the first vice president looked just like his ass and is also biracial. That is, like he said, he mentioned that we have a lot of biracial heroes. That's true. You go look at forgot that one dude name. He did the video because he was in his feelings because he's biracial about all the civil rights leaders and all the people historically who were mixed race, who obviously helped black folks move forward. They were the buffer class. They were in the middle. They had access to stuff that black folks couldn't have: going to school, education, own property, all that stuff. Black people couldn't do that. They could. Not saying that their lives were perfect or whatever, but it was a buffer. They were in the middle. They had access to things that regular black folks did not have. Being a house nigga, still being a nigga, but yet they still had access to things that the field niggas didn't have access to. And I don't understand why it's so hard to just acknowledge that those people were in that position because they were half white. And they're gonna talk about it a little bit, but about how he brought up how the one drop rule was white people not liking mixed race people. That might be how it started in his intentions. They made up some rule that wasn't a real law on the books. It was some shit that they just made up. But the other laws on the books that they created within the Constitution or within the legal system said, no, I have access to this man's money and his property and his resource when he dies because I'm a descendant of his kids. Now, some of them didn't get that shit for generations. Some of their grandkids got the money and resources, Thomas Jefferson and all those others. But, however, because of the law, the actual law, not a rule, but the actual laws in the book, biracials were given access to land and money and stuff. They had to fight for it, they had to prove it, whatever. But because of the real actual law, they were entitled to this because that was their lineage, that was their bloodline. So it is what it is. They might have made something up to stop that from happening, but it didn't work clearly because we've seen they've been able to inherit the wealth and the resources from their racist grandparents or whatever.
Racial things. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I don't make a distinction. Black people don't make a distinction. We got so many people in our family.
We are making a distinction. You know how many black chicks is crying on YouTube every time they turn on the sitcom? And all the little black kids is biracial with 2 black parents on the show? Like, niggas is over that. Like, they annoyed with that. Like, people are making those distinctions. Now, they want actual representation of who they are because they know that just means that they're replacing the race. And you turn on every cartoon, every little sitcom, every little Disney show, and ain't no black kids on there. It's just a bunch of biracials on there. There's a picture, I think, in a black nerd group, and it had a picture of Zendaya saying "beautiful, strong black woman" or whatever. I'm like, nigga nerds are lost. But yes, we do differentiate. It's like, not obviously as a whole in the black community, most of us are on the one route, won't subscribe to it. We are colorists, whatever. Oh, my point was to say though about as far as political stuff, it's like maybe it's part of classism, obviously, because they were in a different class and they were able to have access to stuff that we didn't have. But again, going back to that Alec Baldwin, I mean, I forgot his name, but that conversation he had with one of the Kennedy brothers. Oh, if you keep it up and you keep being good and you keep doing the right things, being articulate and all this other shit, me, a second at best third generation Irishman who already has a brother in the presidency, the only in the last, obviously, first Irish Catholic, last, but we made it to the White House within such and such a minute of time. If y'all keep being good, but this is an Irish white guy telling a black man who's 6, 7 generations in this country, you know, ancestors fought in every war in this country's ever had, blah blah blah, helped build it more than once, not by choice, but he's telling him like, yo, if you be good in 40 years, y'all have a black president. Flash forward 40 years, we get Barack Obama, who's not a descendant of slaves, who's not ADOS, who's a descendant of slave holders on both sides of his family. Boom. Flash forward a couple years later, you get a vice president, also comes from a checkered past of slave owners on both sides of the family. Well, not on his Indian side, but on his Jamaican side, on his, or her father's Jamaican side. It is what it is. We can't skip that. Like, you can't put that in the void and say, nah, that didn't happen. Right? I remember, again, the one black dude that was running from Florida, nigga crack, I won't support him. He was saying some things that were practical as far as being on the local level, but he was on the Breakfast Club, and I'm just like, yo, bro, you the wrong hue. Democrats are colorists. They love their niggas mixed. That's who they will pick to be in their higher positions. Biracials, that buffer class.
Who's been complicated, whose biological ancestry is complicated. Race is about how the world reads you and how you navigate the world. And blackness is the thing. You're not biracial to the cops, you're black to the cops. You know, and so
I never understood. Like, Mark Lamont Hill is intelligent, I guess, if you want to call him that. Write books, reads, all that, educator, teacher. I don't understand how someone with that level of so-called intellect could be so reductive into subscribing to this narrative that, well, if the white cops see you that way, that's what you are. Like, why is that your metric, that a police officer that don't have to have much education, that don't have to, you know, isn't a sociologist, isn't none of those things, right? Why is this person's job in law enforcement somehow the end-all be-all decision making on whether you are mixed race or not? And the funny thing about that is, even Yvette Cornell talked about how, as a light-skinned black woman who has 2 black parents, she acknowledges that there's a difference in the approach of her in the police. There is a difference, right? That's what I'm saying. Stop acting like it ain't a difference. I remember that was that CNN did that special where they had the black dude who's a preacher who used to be a Pookie and Ray Ray in his youth, but he, like most of them, he became a pastor, like most pimps and all that. Dark skinned man, horrible past, had to rehabilitate, so whatever. Then the good family man is a very light skinned black man who all his wife is white, his kids is all biracial, and I don't know if he was mixed too, but I'm like, that imagery, like, I'm like, CNN, you couldn't do it for one time, switch those roles, find a different cast, and like make that shit look different once. They couldn't do that. But my point is, I don't get that argument. When I know people try to come at the Hernandez chick because she was coming at Amber Rose for not identifying as black, whatever, even though she's not, whatever, I don't know what that's about. But they were bringing up, oh, your police record say you pick white. That's not the person picking that. Tiger Woods didn't pick black when he filled out the paperwork. They did that, like, but that's not how he chooses to identify. Someone can, like, it's funny how they won't let you pick or tell you what they really are, or acknowledge what you really are when it comes to race on those files and paperwork, but they'll let you do it when it comes to gender now and let you pick and choose whatever the fuck you want to be. But that's not that person. That's someone else doing it. Just because they see you that way or they're ignorant of what you really are does not dictate who you are. Those police things said Tiger Woods was black. That man is he's every single race that there is, all in one. Cam Blasian is what he calls it. Whatever, that's some made up shit. But that's who he is. That's who he identifies as. Other people seeing him differently ain't got nothing to do with him. That's their problem, not his. How a white cop, and I'm assuming they're talking about white, sees a mixed race person does not dictate who they are. I just don't get that logic of thinking, how reductive of thinking that is. Like, they're the metric, the police officers. They dictate race and identity and all that stuff now. But, and then But and the fucked up thing about that though is they don't. If you do the studies and look at it, the mixed race light skinned people, they're not pulled over as much. They don't have the same situations. So it's like weird how when you break that down and go look at the data, look at the studies, they'll tell you that their interaction with the police is different. They'll tell you, Yvette Cornell's honest to say, yo, I don't really get messed with because of my fair skin, like another black woman who looked darker than me would.
For her to reduce that and go out in front of white people, right? To go on these majority white platforms, conservative platforms, and construct black people as somehow the ones who are holding people hostage to their color, or that black people are somehow denying complex racial makeups. When we've always embraced it, it's white people that made the one drop rules, white people that don't like biraciality, white people that have historically said, no, if you're too much of this or not enough of that, you don't count. Black people have never done that. We've embraced the whole and we continue to. There's nothing about Sage Steele that I dislike in terms of her racial makeup. It's her politics. It's the anti-black politics. That's all.
You know, Sage is. I have my own experience with Sage that I detailed before.
And get pregnant.
Depends. I know.
What does it depend on?
I know trans men that can get pregnant.
That means it's a woman. Only one sex can get pregnant.
That's a circular argument. That's
it's not a circular argument.
Yeah.
It's proving my thing. There is a truth, a concrete truth. You have to be born with a uterus to have a baby. Only women can get pregnant. The fact that we've arrived in a society where
that's the part I'm disagreeing with. That's the part I'm disagreeing with.
There's nothing to disagree with it. These are facts. So you can say that this person who is pregnant identifies as a man. That
chose somebody that wasn't black on The Bachelor. And she, in a group of people, was just real loud about it. It was embarrassing to me. And she's somebody I actually looked up to because I love sports. And so I would see this black woman doing her thing in sports.
Don't you get the problem there though? You were a little black girl looking at a biracial woman, trying to identify with her, seeing her as a black woman. She don't even identify that way, and you look like Boo Boo the Fool. Instead of just saying she's a woman of color, mixed race, on TV, and something I like doing. She doesn't represent me, but I can live through her vicariously. Whatever. But you messed up. That's not her fault. She be lightweight cooning or whatever. Or it's not her fault that she don't want to embrace being just black, but both. Look at Van's face. She's embracing all of who she is. She don't want to identify as one. You saw her on TV. You looked up to that and said, I like that. I respect that. But then she said she did some weird cooning stuff when you picked the white guy. But that's not her fault. That's your fault for looking at this biracial woman. Again, black men don't do that. We don't look at Drake or Obama, even though Obama kind of got a pass because he's president of the United States and most powerful position in the world, allegedly. But we don't look at biracial men and live through them and say, oh, I can be that because this biracial man is in that position. We don't do that. We compete with them niggas. We want to take that spot. We don't want to live through them and be them. We want to do our own thing and be ourselves. Maybe that's just the difference between men and women. Y'all can look at something that doesn't look like y'all and find it, I guess. Even though I thought that was the whole argument that the colorists have been crying about on YouTube for the last 10, 15 years, is that they can't do that. Maybe Lindsay can. Apparently she can because she picked a white man. She's going to make the same little biracial girl that she looked up to on TV, biracial woman, she's going to create one when she has a daughter. I don't know. But Marc about to get real stupid, and I think I'm about to be done.
But what Sage feels, and I'm not going to mention somebody else, but there are other people who are biracial who don't like to necessarily identify as black.
She's
like
talking about Tayshia from The Bachelor.
So, I'd like to go home now.
Why would you feel some type of way about a mixed person not picking one side? I don't get that. I don't give a shit on how they choose to identify. And that's where we live in now. People can identify however they choose, but they're actually identifying by something they actually are. And the darkies feel some type of way about that. I don't get that.
I'd like to go home. I hate that. My co-host doesn't have my back. Anyways, who have an issue with being identified as just black. even though they may be black presenting, they have this issue. Do you feel with, and not all biracial people feel this way, you name several that don't. Do you feel that that is a form of self-hatred?
How they don't hate themselves, they're embracing
themselves. I think that becomes complicated. I think in practice, yes. Yes, in practice, I think most people who deny being black, who are biracial, are doing so because they've been fed a steady diet of anti-blackness and white supremacy, as we all have, and think that identifying as
none of them are denying their blackness. They're just not picking one race or the other. They're choosing to be all of who they are. But it's weird how that's the interpretation. If you don't say I'm black and identify as black, it's not like they're saying I'm white. None of them are saying that. They're all saying I'm biracial, I'm mixed. That's what I am. And it's almost like the darkies don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to. You can't be that. That can't be your worldview. But watch how silly this gets with Marc.
Black is somehow problematic, dangerous, that it diminishes who they are. And so they would hold on to at least half of something else so that they don't have to be all of this thing that makes you a social pariah. That's in practice. Now, in the abstract, in theory, I could imagine someone who says, I don't want to be hostage to American racial logics. I don't want to be hostage to a history that says, if you're one drop of this, then you're all black, and it doesn't matter that the rest of your family was white or vice versa or what have you, right? I could understand somebody wanting to do that. I could understand somebody, particularly people like, I'm going to use Sage one more time, not to beat up on her at all. I have no issue with Sage Steele as a person. But if you say, for example, I was raised by, let me take Sage Steele off the table. I don't want to get into her biography. If a person says, I am raised by a white mom, I was raised around white people, and I identify with their stuff, their culture, their identity. I grew up in a place where there weren't many black people. Whiteness is just as significant to me as my blackness, and they're framing it as a personal choice. I could understand somebody wanting to do that.
I'm confused. Like, I'm confused as hell because he's saying, well, I'll accept them doing it if they group around a bunch of white people, i.e. Barack Obama, Hawaii, and Kansas. Come on now. That was his life experience. I can understand them doing it, but what? Like, I don't get that. Like, they have to be raised by the white woman, which a lot of them are, and they have to identify with white culture and stuff like that. But they're embracing all of who they are again. They're not saying I'm white. They're saying I'm mixed. I love my white mama, I love my black daddy, or vice versa, however it is. But they're embracing both of all of who they are, and yet you feel outside the box can dictate and tell them it's okay only if these things fall in line. I don't get these smart niggas. I don't get them.
Abstract. The problem with that, of course, is that that's not what race means. And that's not how race means. Race comes to mean something not based on our individual choices, but how the world responds to our bodies and our language and our skin color and our hair, all underbodies in some ways. And so you gotta accept that. Like, even if you might feel really white inside or half and half inside or whatever the thing is, to the world you are black. And by definition, you are black. And to ignore that is only at your own peril, because you're gonna still navigate the world and they don't care how you feel inside.
I don't need to listen to anymore. This motherfucker is the same motherfucker that was on Candace Owens' show and was asked, can men have periods? Can men get pregnant? And he said yes. Doesn't care. The world doesn't care about. You heard what he just said. If you're biracial, by definition you're black. The world sees you this way. It don't matter what you actually are. It doesn't matter what your genetic makeup is. It doesn't matter what your DNA is. It doesn't matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter how you feel, how you relate, or whatever. Again, none of these people are saying I'm white. They're saying I'm mixed. He don't like that either. But this same dude, these smart, educated niggas, must not ignore that these are the type of men that academia creates. Will tell you that a man can get pregnant and a man can have a period. But a biracial person who's actually biracial can't identify that way. Ha! I I have no more words. I don't even need to listen to the rest of the video. This shit is crazy. This shit is crazy. I gotta clip the 2 parts of him saying that shit on Candace Owens and the end of what he just said, because there's nothing much to see here. Like, I'm done. Good night. Have a good day. Biracials, keep doing what you're doing. If y'all embracing who all you, black folks is gonna have a fucking seizure, or once biracials fully feel comfortable embracing themselves, one of them gonna be famous and embrace that. Every time someone does do it, kind of slightly, they shut it down. One rapper, female chick, called herself mulatto. They made her change her name. Eventually, that guilt and that stuff is gonna go away, and they gonna feel comfortable just saying, "No, I'm biracial, and this is what it is. Like, you gonna accept me or you're not." And that person, if they're a superstar and they big, it's gonna hurt a lot of you niggas' feelings. A lot of you nigger cracks are gonna be crying when the great white biracial comes out and they not scared to identify as with all of who they are. I don't get it. That's my video. I'm out.